afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to walk through this process with us. As you can see, we're pretty excited about this. A lot of work has gone into this and a lot of discussions. From the last time we talked, I think it was about, obviously last month, but we did this training in January 2020 before we went home. And some of this might be a little bit of a repeat from what you saw in January, but obviously we've been working really hard with our developer, Craig Fink, who is here and is going to be walking you through a lot of this today with me. And we've really tried to capture all the different things within this platform that will hopefully make your lives easier, make our lives easier, and of course, make our customers' lives easier. Um, but obviously, with any change comes a bit of a learning curve. And like I said, we just really appreciate your patience as we kind of navigate this next year within this portal and any hiccups that might arise. I think though that we're in a good place with it, and hopefully today you will be as well. Um, Again, for those of you that just joined us, if you have questions during this presentation, I would just ask that you use the chat feature. And Will, just to let you know, I cannot see the chat right now. So once Craig starts presenting, I'll hop over and moderate the chat. But while I'm talking here, if anything pops up, please just let me know because I can't see it when I'm presenting for some reason.
No problem. I'm on it.
Got it. And the mute, so if we have, like I said before, we muted all of the mics, use the chat feature, but if it's a long drawn out question, feel free to hit the spacebar key and it temporarily unmutes you. Regarding district specific questions, so if it's a specific process to your district versus like the overall OPWC Clean Ohio process, please save those and we can you can discuss directly with your program rep who can then loop director bailiff in as well if any type of like a policy decision or an accommodation needs to be met based off of the way you normally conduct business. We realize that all of you have different ways of collecting project applications and whatnot. It's definitely not as complicated as our infrastructure program that some of you may or may not be involved with. But regardless, every district has their own kind of process, and the purpose of this platform is certainly not to intrude on that process in any way. So if there's something that you just don't see that we're accommodating or something that we need to walk through with you, contact your program representative and they can kind of loop us all in to see if there's a good way to navigate that. We do have a a platform training manual coming out later this month. We had hoped for it to be ready today, but we've got a lot going on ourselves. So hopefully in the next few weeks, as you start getting your usernames and passwords, we will also be putting out the training manual. That's just basically a step-by-step recap of what we're going to walk through today. So don't worry if you're feeling, if you start to feel overwhelmed during this training, just know that we don't expect you to learn all of this today. There will be, a manual coming out, and you can always print the manual off, pull this video back up, which will be publishing to YouTube, and I will be putting the link on our WorksWise page on the website. And you can reference that training link a little bit and go back through it for things that you just weren't really sure on. And then, of course, we're always, myself, Will, Donna, Jen, Linda, we're always here to walk you through any assistance you may need as you get into the system and understandably have questions your first go around. We're always here for that. Now, for applicants, we will have a whole system set up. So if they have questions, they can contact our customer service number. And Martha Deneen, who's our business manager, will be handling that side of things as far as issues with logging in or just overall functionalities within the system that you're struggling with or your applicants are struggling with. There will be that number available. And then, of course, we have our WorksWise at pwc.ohio.gov email address, which is where we'd like you to direct all of the WorksWise questions. And Martha, Deneen, and I will be manning that email box and either responding or passing it along to your program representative as needed. I'm going to jump right in unless anybody has any questions yet. The first thing I want to recap is how to request a login and username. For those of you that were here this morning, you might remember that we're not getting a great response from our customers when we sent out emails notifying them that our process was changing. We took every applicant with an active project with us to date, and we sent them an email saying that this is changing. You're going to need to be able to log into our system in order to manage your projects. And we gave them the link to the JOT form that we're using to collect all the signups. I think we sent that out to close to 4,000 people. And to date, we have a total of 120 signups. So obviously we're a little disappointed so far with the signups that we've had. And I think a lot of it comes down to just people not opening emails. That's kind of my guess. I even resent it to all the people that didn't open it, but then you get into issues with spam complaints and whatnot. So I don't want to hammer people's emails unnecessarily. So what we do intend to do is send out some sort of a draft letter or postcard letting all of your folks know that going forward they're going to have to get this set up, and here's how you go about doing that. But any help that you can give us with your folks, if you have a mailing list, if you however you communicate with your applicants at large, we would really appreciate you helping us get the word out that people need to start signing up for these, because it's going to make it difficult, specifically for the people that might wait till the last minute to submit an application. It might make it a little difficult if they, haven't already submitted a request for a login. But regardless, on the login, it's still on this Public Works Wise training page on our website. It's this home bar. You can scroll down. Here's where we have the list for all of our training sessions that are coming up in the next 2 weeks. These would be the sessions specifically that you want to direct your applicants to attend. I didn't say this in the last training, but you'll notice if you are in one of my districts, we had rolled those up with the other program reps since I am the one providing the training. So it is a little confusing because District 9 and District 13 are not Will's districts. Those are my districts, but they are being combined with Will's districts in that case. And then of course those will be how to apply for application funding. And then down below here we have our statewide disbursement training. So anybody that's planning to use the portal for disbursement training will attend that one. And then finally, statewide follow-up training, literally just for anybody that just needs to, get in front of somebody and ask questions. And, hopefully hopefully those will be minimal and it'll be perfectly clear, but you never know, and anybody is welcome to attend if they're having some issues. Sometimes people just need face-to-face time to help out. So if they do want to log in for a WorksWise portal login, this is where they will go, which takes them to our JOT form, and it just asks some questions regarding the nature of their request. It's pretty simple. The other thing that I also wanted to point out on this webpage is that we have FAQs at the bottom. So if there are questions that are coming up, you can refer to these. And as we start getting more questions coming in, we do intend to keep updating those. So for example, down at the very bottom, do district committee members, or in your case, NRAC members, need logins? No, they do not. The NRAC members themselves can be provided information from you as the liaison. The NRAC members do not need logins unless they are an applicant, but that will have a different look. They won't have the same functionalities as a liaison. Liaisons have a higher level permission. Moving on, specific to working with communities, and I don't know that this is necessarily the case for Clean Ohio, but it's more so with our infrastructure, but I'm going to real quickly touch base on it anyways. If you work on behalf of any communities or you plan on helping communities put in any type of application within the portal, we do require this letter of authorization for WorksWise, and it's essentially just a letter from the community saying, you know, Jane Doe has the right to submit an application on our behalf, and we just ask that you upload it with the documentation when you submit the application. The other time to upload that letter is also when you're submitting a request for the WorksWise portal. So if you're submitting a request to act on somebody else's behalf, then that's when you would upload that letter. Any questions so far? Okay. So real quickly, the main thing that I want to walk you through is setting up required documents and deadlines within the system.
Abby,
Yes.
sorry, there was one question in the chat.
Okay, great.
Did the email regarding signing up go out to all NRAC members as well as applicants?
Not unless the NRAC member has a current application with us. So it's anybody that has a current active project agreement with us. And I believe it also went out to anybody that signed up for our Clean Ohio email list. So it's active projects with us and active recipients of our Clean Ohio newsletter. And how, going back really quick, go to my homepage here. There we go. How do you know how to sign up for those? Right down here is where they can sign up for our email notifications. You click sign up here, and it takes you to this screen. You enter your email address, your first name, and then you can click which email lists you want to be a part of. So that's another good way to ensure that you're a part of our email list. But we did do a pull from our database to collect all active project officials for all active projects. Thanks, Jen. Okay, so let's walk through real quick how to set up required documents and deadlines within the system. This is obvious. This is our test system currently, and I am logged in as Stephanie Dyer. I'm acting on her behalf, but what you would do is you would click in this upper right-hand corner where your name is, and you go down to My Account. On the screen, just like infrastructure from this morning, is where you have the ability to set your dates and deadlines. So Clean Ohio's submission start date. Let's say you want to start accepting applications on September 1st of this year at 12 o'clock a.m. And let's say you want to close it out on December 31st at 12 o'clock p.m. Okay. You would set those dates. The other thing that is important to note is this is your place where if you have a required document that comes with your applications that everybody has to fill out, this is where you would identify those documents. Anything OPWC required is already on there, so you don't need to require it a second time. So over here, you're going to see OPWC required documentation, the authorizing legislation, CFO certification, declaration of restrictions, project map, purchase contract / letter of intent. Those are all things that in order to process a project agreement, we have to have. Those are non-negotiables. Maybe you guys require appraisals. Maybe you require, let's see here. I think the engineer's estimate's already on there, but let's, whatever. You require that one. You require a farmland preservation letter. You know, these are all just examples. Media articles, whatever the case may be. If there's, or you have a supplemental, for example, like you have something that you want them to fill out that's specific to your district. You click all the things that you want to require with your application, okay? Resolution of support, that's another important one. And then let's say you don't want to require, you know, you screwed up, you just go in and remove them, just like that. It's pretty simple. And if you remember, this was basically the entire list that we asked everybody to put together from both programs of anything possibly that you could ever ask for. of course, there's, somebody's going to come up with something that we didn't capture somewhere on this list, and that's okay. Not on this list is just an other button that's part of every application process. And if it's something that's not captured in this list, the applicant still has the ability just to label it other, and then they can give it a name as to what it is that they want. Let's also say that maybe you keep an external website with, pertinent information to your district. You could go in here and drop a link to whatever your website is, and it will take your applicant there if they have questions about how things go. And then right here is the Clean Ohio submission end date. So this is kind of nice. We have two different dates. We have the final acceptance date. So say you have like a cure period. Let's say you give them from September 1st until, hold on here, I'm just going to go out. September 1st until October 31st to submit the application. And then maybe there's some things that you expect them to, fix or cure before then. You could adjust these dates as needed to give a final cure date. So this gives you two dates now that you can go ahead and adjust if needed, or you can just keep them both the same. That's completely up to you. But I know some folks had kind of expressed the need for having like a cure date or a second date, that type of thing. So we did build that into the system. And then finally, so you hit save. And there you go. So now you're set up. And this is something you'd probably want to do with every funding round. Is the first thing you do is kind of go in and set this up. So this is what's setting up when you can start submitting applications, when it ends. And then it's no more guessing as to, if they get it in at 2:02 p.m. and it was due at 2 o'clock, then what are you supposed to do? The system just locks them out. No more submissions. You've missed the deadline. It is what it is. So it makes it a little bit easier, hopefully, on you from that end. The other thing to note on this page too is we have the balances. This is the running balance. I don't know that this is correct currently. So if anybody from District 6 is in here, don't freak out if that's not what you thought it was. But it will have, in the live system, it will have the balances that you can go in and view the rolling balances at any time. So the nice thing is you don't have to go and shoot off an email to your program rep every time you need to know what the balance is. You can just go in and double check it yourselves. Are there any questions so far here? Okay, hearing none. The next thing I just want to touch on, and oh, go ahead.
So I did not see any in chat. Is it voice coming through this time?
What's that?
I said I did not see any in chat. I was just checking to make sure my voice was coming through too.
Yes, I hear you now. Yes, thank you. The last thing we just want to touch base on, we will with the training manual coming out in a few weeks, we will have, there's different statuses within the system that you'll kind of need to know how the whole system works. And Jennifer Klein did a really nice job putting together a flow chart that kind of walks you through the different statuses. So we will have those out in the upcoming week or two, just to kind of walk you guys through how the system is viewing the different statuses as the process goes through, between submitting application and needing more information and submitted and approved, and what does that look like and where does that put the application in that process. The other thing I wanted to make you aware of really quick before I turn it over to Craig to kind of walk you through a few things is internally we are this week rolling into the new system and trying to get everything operational. The goal is still to have the portal fully functional by July 1st for our district liaisons, and you will be getting your username and password around or before that date. But we did decide to push back the overall launch to our customers until the first week of August, just to ensure that between our staff and our district liaisons, we've all had plenty of time to kind of play around with the new system and ensure that it's functioning the way that we had envisioned. And it also gives our developer, Craig, a little bit more time too, because we keep throwing more stuff at him. and he's really managing it well, but there is a lot that goes into this process. So we're just trying to make sure that we do it right rather than rushing the process. So if you are by any chance moving along with your next round of funding and had planned on using the portal prior to August 4th, and this throws some, huge wrench in your plans or something, please let us know and reach out to your program rep and we can brainstorm any ways to help you out with that. I don't foresee too many of you accepting up. I don't know for sure, but I don't think a lot of you are starting your process in July, but if you are, like I said, just reach out to your reps and we're happy to help you navigate how that might look. Maybe it's just that you accept a paper application now between now and August 4th, and then we work to get it into the portal once the portal is live. I do not have anything else here unless anybody else has questions for me. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to our developer, Craig Fink. I think I just saw a question pop up. Where is that? Can somebody read that to me? It popped up and then it disappeared.
I don't see a question in there, Abby.
Was it sent to me directly? I'll have to see. Okay, let me stop sharing my screen. Okay, I do see one. So Angie Farley sent, you want everyone applicants to ask for a login now, but they will not be able to use it until August 4th. Yeah, anytime, anytime between now and August 4th, it's going to take some time once we do start getting people regularly asking for them. It's going to take us some time to get those logins out. So, the sooner the better. Just start having people request them through our website. And I did update the website just to say, I think the few people that have signed up so far were concerned that they hadn't seen anything yet. And like I said, it's going to be a little bit of time before we get those out. So just ask them to be patient. Any other questions on this, at least? Okay. Hey, I'm going to turn it over to Craig Fink. You guys might remember him from last 2 Januaries ago, I should say. And he's going to walk you through some of the functionalities within the portal.
Hey everyone, hope everyone's having a good afternoon. As Abby said, we probably all briefly met back in summer and a half ago, something like that. I'm going to walk you through the basics of how the portal works and then a little bit deeper dive into how you would get your the bulk of your work done, which would be submitting the slate and getting your projects approved for funding. Everybody should be able to see my screen now, I hope.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, good. I'm going to double check just to make sure that we're logged in correctly. Abby, did you log out?
I did not. Let me log out.
That's okay. It looks like it's showing up correctly.
Okay, I logged out now. There you go.
Okay. All right, so the first page here, this is where you would land immediately after you log in, and basics of this is that you would see all the applications for your district. Now there are a bunch of, we call them views or filters that are available to you to kind of ease your way through your work. And we can these up ahead of time so that you can accomplish commonly needed tasks. Perhaps you want to revisit applications that hadn't been funded, or you need to look for admin costs, things like that. When you finally get into the system and you start looking for data and you don't see easily what you need to see and you think you have something that's a common use, you're asking yourself for this information all the time, just let us know and we will make changes to make these things more applicable as necessary. They're not complicated to do, so just let us know what your requests are and we'll take that into consideration and see what we can do. In this application list, one of the things that you'll notice is there's a little pin here, and that pin records basically what your favorite filter is. So if you don't pin something, what happens is you will come in and you will get a list of recently viewed things. which looks like this. These are the ones I am currently also logged in as Stephanie, and these are the applications that we've recently viewed while logged in as Stephanie, and this would be my default if I had never pinned anything. But if I have a favorite, I can go to that favorite list, and I like it all, and I can pin it, and then if I go away to another menu and come back to the applications or come back to the home page, in this case, the all menu will be pinned for me, and I can pick up working where I was working previously. A couple of other things about the way these lists work. Actually, if you were in the first session, I don't think I covered some of these things, but generally you'll be able to order by any of the columns. If there's a little arrow when you go over it, you would be able to flip the ordering by that column. So that's one way that you can make things easier to find. Some of the items in the list are searchable from this search box that it will appear just above every list you see in the portal. Some things are not. So it depends on how considerably how it's stored. So it tells you here what you can't search, and this all depends on how the storage engine stores the information. But I can search by project name if I spell it right. So it's going to pull up anything with mosquito in the project name. There's a few, and then I can click the X and hit enter again and restore the filter without any searching that's done. And what that does is that searches the active filter. So if let's say if I was only looking at, say, projects that haven't been funded, if there were any, mosquito maybe doesn't show up here. It's because it's also filtering by whatever list I've chosen at the top. A couple other things that you can do on this list, if I can stop right clicking, is you can copy a list. And a lot of times the terminology in Salesforce for copying will be clone. It's basically making a new version of this list. This would be private list for you, which you would never have these options. These are for PWC to choose, for multiple folks to be able to use. This would be your own private list. So this is my private list. And then when I do that, I can then choose how to filter that list. So maybe I want to say, I'm going to be working with, let's see, the mosquito projects all the time, or frequently over the next month, something like that. And I just want to go ahead and save that. Sorry, I used equals. You gotta be careful with your operator. In this case, it was a contains. The exact name was not mosquito. So here's all the mosquito projects that are filtered. And now I can log out, come back in. This list will be there for me. I can change this list in the future, and you'll be able to do that pretty much wherever you see listings of things. And wherever you see listings of things, you'll be able to order. And then if you get really advanced and really comfortable on your own private lists, you will also be able to choose the actual data that you can see. Now this is advanced because it takes some understanding of where we put the data in the system. So you have to know what the names are for the data, but you can do it. You're not going to hurt anything by changing that and trying to see what you see as you go through the application. Now, as we get into the daily work of submitting, or not daily, but the bulk of the work of submitting a slate, you would go to project slates. And in there, you'll have a recently viewed. You also would have current. Now, current infrastructure would not be applicable if you were not an infrastructure liaison, and actually should end up being hidden in the production system if you are not. So you would only see current Clean Ohio, and vice versa if you are not the Clean Ohio liaison. So I can go to Clean Ohio and I can see here's the slate for the current funding round. And I can, at a glance, I can see some of the balance information of that slate. If I click on that, I get some general header information at the top. When did this round start? When does it end? When do the awards get released? The fact that this is the current slate. So if I happen to be viewing a different one, I would know that. It's Clean Ohio. It hasn't been closed yet. And then the funding situation for this slate is also on this page. Somebody asking a question? No. Okay. There's also links to your own record, and there's links to the district record. This is another way to get to the My Account information that was up at the top here. Click on that. Additionally, you'll have some called related lists, and you'll see this is comment on any details of information that you're looking at, like, say an application. And under the related list, you'll often see a files listing. In this case, we have a files listing for all the slate documents. Now, what is this? Well, when I'm ready to go to the committee meetings, I might need all of the documentation that was uploaded with these project applications. How can I get that? I can go say request the slate documentation, and if I don't want to use my account's email address that's associated with my login, if I want to send it to a different email address, that's fine. I can enter that here. And when that documentation is ready for you to download, it will send you an email and tell you that it's ready. But all you do is you just click that button, enter your email, hit save, and it will make a request for the documentation to be compiled into one zip file, and then you will be able to download that. Now, what happens? Where do I download it? Well, in the email that you get, you'll get a link, and it'll send you back here to this files listing, and this files listing will contain the zip. Now, every time in Salesforce, which is the supporting engine of this portal, is going to present document links like this, and you'll have options to download, or you could kind of view the details. You probably won't really need to do that, or you could download the file. So I'm going to download that file, and you see that it is a zip file, and it has inside of that each one of the subdivisions that has applications for this round, and then within there a folder for each application that they have, and then all the documentation that they uploaded that's associated with that application. And additionally, and I've to save space in the test system, I've deleted a bunch of the documentation that's in there, so that's why you're not seeing a whole lot. Additionally, you would have a PDF representation of the application information itself that resembles the paper PDF that is taken today, and that gets automatically generated when the applicant submits their application for your review, and that would always be in that file for each project. And then one other thing about the files that are in there, when they upload files, they will indicate what that file is for. We will rename it with the indication of what they said that was for, and then the original name, so they can keep track of it. Now I'm uploading blank ones here, so they don't take up any space. They're technically not blank. They technically have information in them. I've just called them blank. But this should let you know that we don't validate what the contents of the file are. So that's clearly not appraisals, and this is clearly not authorizing legislation. The applicant said it was, but it's not, and we have no way of validating that. You're going to need to validate that the information they said they provided is what they provided. And then just for an FYI, yes, you can upload more than just text. Obviously, you can upload PDFs and images and Word documents as appropriate. So if they have like a scan of something, they can upload that. If they have PDFs, they can upload that, and they can upload Word documents. Okay, back to our slate. If I go back into this person here, I say, what do I need to do with this next? Once I have the requested slate documentation, how can I present the rest of the information to the committee or do my work and provide scores on that information? Well, one of the ways that we can do that is we can download and upload a Excel sheet in CSV format, which has got just a comma delimited file. and record our scores in Excel and then upload them. So where do I get the original file? I can click that upload button and then click here to download the report. And unfortunately, there are some steps here that we kind of can't get around, but it's a report. At this point, it's viewable in Salesforce as a report. In order for you to get it to a download, you need to go to export. And then in order for it to upload easily, you can download it in this other format, but you won't be able to upload in that format. In order for you to download easily, you're always going to want to choose details only. We would suggest using comma delimited file, because when you upload it, you have to save it as that when you upload it back into the system, and then choose export. And now if I view this in my folder, I'm going to have a comma delimited file there. If I double click on that, Excel will open it up if you have Excel on your machine. And you'll see the information that we have downloaded. There is extra information in here aside from what you need to manage. So we have an ID for the application. This ID is helpful because I can take this ID and I can go find that project in the portal by searching for it. There are other ways to search for it. There's other things you can enter there that would lead you to the same thing. But if you have the ID, you're going to get one match essentially, and it'll take you directly to that application. So that is helpful in there for you to have that information. This one is a system identifier. We need this to be able to match the data up when you upload your scores back into the system. Then we have who was the applicant. Now, on some imported applications, we're going to see weird applicant information because the old system, the old electronic filing system, didn't keep necessarily all the applicant information. So we have to kind of dummy it up. But new applications that occur after this goes live, you'll always see the applicant's name in this area. The name of the project would come next, and you can see we have administrative costs as part of it, which is why Stephanie's name is the applicant for that project, because that's the administrative costs. And then subdivision, or this would be a subdivision's zip code if it's entered, the subdivision and a county information here, and then the type of subdivision here. And then we get into more project information, the type of project, admin costs, green space, repairing corridor, and so on. And then a little bit of the financials off of the application, so you have some context, the fee simple, easement, the total of those two, the total estimated costs, the total local. Let me open some of these up a little bit so you can read them. And then we start to get into what am I going to manage when I go to upload my information back in. And that is going to be every column, and after the subtotal local resources up to the second or up to the next to last column. So funding recommendation, this has three values. It can be fund, it can be do not fund, or it can be contingency. Yeah, the code, the subdivision code, jurisdiction, no, we don't have that information. So the funding recommendation can be fund, it can be do not fund, it can be contingency, and I'll explain those in a bit. The score, we don't care what your methodology is for scoring. It just has to have a score associated with each item. And same thing for scoring priority. We don't care, but then obviously you can communicate back and forth with your rep about how you want that to be utilized if there's a need. But we just care that you provide it. We don't care what your methodology is. So this could be 1 to 1 million as far as we're concerned. Doesn't really matter. A contingency ranking, I'll get into that a bit. And then the amount of grant requested. And then this last column is the marker that this is the end of the row. So just leave that one alone. It's another system identifier. Now, when we upload this data back into the system, the only things that you need to change, and Clean Ohio is a little bit better than infrastructure, or a little bit easier than infrastructure if you were in part of the infrastructure this morning. The only things that you need to change are these 4 items. unless you determine that that project maybe it needed its cost adjusted, then you would download the project again and have the updated costing information. Or when you upload this back, you could adjust it in the file, and we're not going to update it when you upload it. So the only things you need to change are these 4 columns: funding, recommendation, total score, scoring priority, and contingency. If you change anything else, we're just going to ignore it. So you can kind of do with this file whatever you want outside of these 4 columns. These 4 columns, these are going to affect the record when you upload it. We'll store this information back onto the record. And it's going to need to be the values that we, within the ranges that we require. So this has to be one of the 3 settings that we accept of fund, do not fund, and contingency. This has to be a numeric value. This has to be a numeric value. And this has to be nothing or 1 through 10. The rest of this file, as far as what we're concerned with when we upload it, we just need to make sure that all these columns remain. And if these columns do not remain, and they do not remain in this order, the file will not read in properly. So you want to make sure that whatever you upload back into the system, you make sure those columns stay there. But again, we don't care what you do with the data here. We also don't care if you add tabs. So you might have some formula tabs that you want to can out where you do some math. You can add those to this. When you upload it, though, it's always going to need to be a CSV, and it's always going to need to be just 1 sheet. So you need, when you upload it, you need to make sure you just take the first sheet and just as it was. And if you do a save as, if you download it as an Excel sheet, you always want to pick CSV, comma delimited. This one, and I know there's more than one option in here, weird things that say CSV, but it's always this one, CSV, comma delimited. And that's the format that we will take it back in as when you go to upload the document. Now, what you do is you take this thing and you can go score and edit your scores right in here and edit your priorities, and then choose which ones you're going to actually try to have funded and which ones you're not caring to have funded, and then which ones might be up for contingent consideration. So what we would say is, and if you're not quite used to the way we determine contingency, here's how we're going to use it. Contingency would be you've gone over the amount that you have available for funding, and anything that you can do to get under the amount that you have available for funding, but you want to have funded, you need to mark those contingency. So if this first project takes me up to the amount that we have, and this next one takes me over, then this one I would mark contingency if I want to try to fund it. And then, obviously we'll, at a later date, we'll try to get it funded depending on what funds are available. Of course, there's people outside mowing, so I don't know if that's disturbing my noise in the background, but bear with me while they're doing the lawn. And then if we have a project that we just know will not be funded, that would be one that we would choose to not fund at all. Now I've made some changes already to the Excel sheet so that we could upload some. And
We have a question here from Lori asking what if recommendation amount is different? So you mean, Lori, like if they apply for 100,000 and you're only going to offer them 80 or something? I'm assuming. So in that case, Craig, wouldn't that be on either here or on the other screen that we have where they could put in a reduced amount, or they could work with their rep to reduce that amount?
yeah, so you would work with the rep, or offhand, I can't remember if the liaison has the power to do that themselves. I think we took that away, but you can work with your rep to adjust the funding being requested, and then thereby bring down the amount. So what it would be the rep would adjust, say, well, what costs are not going to be a part of this application, right? And then that would say bring the total expenses down, and then the amount that you're going to fund would then go down in conjunction.
Got it. Yeah. And so she's saying if something is considered ineligible, that might happen, which is very true. I think in that case, Lori, if it's after the well, two situations could occur, right? One could be you catch it before the submission date ends and you just have them adjust the project application. You send it back for revisions, you ask them to adjust it down to only include eligible costs. Let's say it's not discovered until after that whole process has ended, then yeah, you'd probably have to work with your program rep to reduce the amount that is either ineligible or it, you know, can't be funded, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and part of that would fall into whether it's in the cure period or not in the cure period as to who can edit it and who can't, whether you need the rep to intervene or you don't need the rep to intervene. After it's submitted by you to the reps for review, the rep definitely has to intervene. You can't edit them after you submit them to the rep. Okay. This file, I have made some changes to the file. So I've set the first project, and it doesn't matter that this one's admin costs and these two aren't. I set the first one to be funded, one to be contingency and one to not fund. And then I've set my scoring and I've set my priorities. So I should be able to upload this file and have it affect that information as we come back in. And I need to go back to the slate record. And I would go upload scores. Put this over. I will choose my file that I want to upload. So in this case, I'm going to choose this one, scored apps, and it has that information that we just talked about in it. And click upload. And what it's going to tell me, hey, there's some errors. Some of the information that you uploaded was not correct. These two records were fine. So the following passed all checks. These could be uploaded if we did it separately, if we had them in a separate file. But right now they're all in the same file and they all need to, everything in the one single file needs to pass. This record in the second row did not pass. And it's telling me that, I've suggested that that should only be funded contingently. If we're choosing it as a contingency project, we need to rank them so that there can be some consideration for which ones to consider first when funding does become available. So since I didn't rank them, it's not letting me upload that information. Now I have a second file where I have ranked them, and I'll just briefly show that file. So the only difference here between this one and the last one is that I put the ranking on that record that has contingency, and the ranking is 1. And even if there is only 1, we're not going to know that as you upload it. So you're still going to have to rank it. You're just going to have to rank it 1. So I can go pick that file instead and upload it. And now it uploaded correctly, and you get a green text that says it's uploaded. It's been saved at this point, and you are done. This information has been saved with each one of these records. This one is recommended funding. It scored high. This one is contingency, and it's my first ranking contingency, and the other one I'm recommending not be funded at all. I can just click exit at that point. FYI, if you forget how to get to the export that got you here in the first place, which was here, which is a little convoluted, it's just there for convenience, really. Is you can also get to it right here, Clean Ohio Scoring Export, and that will bring you back to the same place. Now, we can't take that extra step out of having to do this export, but that's an easy way to get to the export if you need to. And I would imagine most people would go that direction. Okay, what can I do next? Well, I have applications. I may not necessarily be working with them all at one time. So that's like I got to take things with me and go to the committee kind of example and come back and be disconnected and not do it while I'm all online. Well, I might also be just like in here working and looking at applications.
Yeah, and Craig, this is a good point to lead into a question that talks about being able to view applications. The liaisons, Tim Zollick is asking, will liaisons be able to see the applications while in the process of being completed, but not yet submitted? So this would be here, right?
Yep. Yeah, and when we pass out the nice diagramming that was done for how the statuses work, you'll start to understand what the names of these filters mean. So it's, the obvious ones are, hey, all admin costs are all contingency projects. But what is awaiting decision? What is approved? What is awaiting signature? What do those things mean? Removed, submitted. When we pass out that spreadsheet, you'll start to understand more of what that means. But these are ones that have not been submitted to OPWC for their review, and that means submitted by you through the slate submission process. Projects that have been submitted to you by the liaison will have a status of signed or a status of needs more information. Needs more information means you've asked the applicant for more information. Signed means it's in your hands. You can do with it as you need. So here's the ones that are signed right now, and they're the same three that I was just dealing with in the upload. You can see it's got my scoring on this list, so you can see that it's got the scores that I just uploaded.
Craig, I think his question is, let's say City of Cincinnati is putting in an application, but they haven't like fully submitted it for the district yet to start reviewing. Will the liaison be able to see that they've started that process, but it hasn't been submitted? Okay.
Yep, and again, it's all in the same spot.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So those projects are in a not submitted status. I don't have any projects that are not submitted.
Yeah.
But they are quote unquote not submitted. And that means that the applicant has not sent it to you. They're working on it, but you can click on it, you can view it, and you can actually even edit it. So if they say, I just don't know what to do with this thing, you can go help them. You can click on the record and you can go help them fill it out.
And that's also a good time too. I mean, what Lori was speaking out before with ineligible projects. I mean, that's kind of your opportunity. If you're seeing something come through and it's just like, this isn't clean Ohio, right? That's a good opportunity as you're starting to see it coming in to contact them and say, you know, I've seen this application coming in and I'm just questioning some of the eligibility factors of it. So you will have kind of that advanced warning as to what you're going to be looking at, which is nice.
Yeah, no, we won't proactively notify you about anything that hasn't been sent to you by the applicant. So the applicant kind of says they're done with it by choosing the button that says submit. And when they do that, you'll get a notification in the system that says that you've got new things that have been submitted to you for review. So depending on how you work, if they need help from you, or you know they need help, you can wait till you see it out there. But if they are more independent, you might just wait until they actually submit it, and you'll get a notification. And this little bell will light up just like Facebook or Twitter would, with the icon that says you have one or two new things that have been submitted to you that you might want to review. And then when you're in there, you can also click on that, and you can open that. Now, open a new tab doesn't work from there. I just didn't want to leave this page. You could click on that and go to that record and review that item. So let me go into this application that we have been dealing with. Yeah, no problem. So here's one that we were dealing with. We scored it with the download and upload process, but I can also go into an individual application that has, as long as it has been submitted to me already. So if it's not still in that new status where the applicant hasn't officially passed it on to the liaison, you're not going to score that one yet. But once they submit it to you, then you can score it. And you can do that just by hitting the district recommendation button. And you can see the same information that we had in the file. Now, in addition here, you can make notes, which you couldn't do in the file. Hang on, my dog is being annoyed by something. Let me stop him before he starts barking over me. See. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, so you can edit the same scoring information here that you did before, and you can see that basically we're requiring everything except for the contingency rank, which is only going to be required if you've got the thing marked as contingency. And then one of the things you'll notice is there are icons on some fields that can help you fill information out as you're going through the record. So you can change the scores there. Now that's not the only place. There is one more place that we can work on scoring. I can go back to the slate itself. Oh, while I was there, let me show one more thing. While you're on that application, obviously you're going to be able to see all the information that was entered by the applicant or by you. Excuse me. Nothing. Okay. Or by you assisting the applicant. And at the bottom of this listing, you will see files that they have uploaded. Now I've deleted them out of the test system for space saving reasons, but any files they uploaded would appear here, and you can go through the process here of uploading a file. When we upload a file, basically everybody's got to pick what is the purpose of this file, and they do that here with the submission type. So I see that I need to have appraisals, authorizing legislation, and so on. These are those settings that Abby showed. The combination of what's required by OPWC and by your own district would appear in this list, and that helps us figure out what is required and what has not been submitted yet. So if I submit one for appraisals, you'll see it renames it appraisals. I can then just cross-reference this, and this is why this file is listed. In this case, appears at the bottom of the details that you're viewing, so that you can coordinate between the files listing and the actual required documentation. Appraisals, yep, I have appraisals. If you had authorizing legislation, you would see that. Obviously, you could order them by the title, so you could get them in the same order as this, and you could see at a glance, at least, does it look like I have everything that I need. And then, of course, you can download the file and review it to see if you actually do have a file that is pertinent to what they've indicated that file is. And again, Salesforce is not going to validate that. You're going to need to validate that. And the reps obviously will need to help you validate that too. Go back to the slate, and I have another opportunity to be able to adjust my scoring, and that is through the slate submission process. Now, if I've used other means to score the applications, when I get to this screen that I'm going to click on next, I don't have to do anything because I've scored everything already. But if I want to wait till here, that's fine too, because I can enter all the scoring information on this page. But you always have to come through this page to be able to submit it. So if you've done the work already, you would just click on that and hit submit. If you haven't done the work yet, then you would click on that and you would do the work and make sure everything is kosher. And then you can either save your changes. Let's say you've got a whole bunch of applications to go through. You can save your changes. You won't close out of the screen. It'll say on here, it's not supposed to close out of the screen. I need to fix that. It shouldn't close out of the screen. It should stay on there. And then you could cancel to get out at any time that you want to just cancel and be done. And then if you actually are done, then you choose submit slate. Now, when you choose submit slate, you're reaching a final status. You won't be able to edit those applications anymore without the assistance of the rep. And you won't be able to change the scoring without the assistance of the rep. So once you do this, you're kind of like finalizing your slate as far as your work is considered. So that's why you get a confirmation box. Are you sure you want to do that now? Yeah, I want to do it now or not. I'll cancel for now. So we have more to talk about on the screen. What you'll notice at the top for GSC, and again, if you were in for infrastructure this morning, this is much simpler because there's not as many choices. I don't have a bunch of funding available for this. I just have the Clean Ohio funding, and I can see the balance that was used the last round, how much we were allocated for this round, and what are we currently funding, and we're only currently funding 15 grand. So we're in the green. I know sometimes these colors don't show up very well on like a Zoom meeting, but this is green if you are doing fine. And then if you are not doing fine, then it'll turn red, and that'll let you know that you are considerably over in this case. And then back to green if I've got it coordinated again. Colors. At a glance, I can tell anything that is a contingency because it will have a yellow background, and anything that I have said we are likely not to fund is red. If I change that, it'll update. If I want to add that to the funded bucket, It'll update. You also notice that it updated the current total and the balance. If I change it back to do not fund, it'll bring that current total back down and the balance will change again. And same thing for contingency. If I'm going to say, oh, well, it turns out I do have enough room to actually get this funded, I can change it to fund, and then it will turn white. So I know that it's at a glance one that I'm asking to have funding for. Again, on the contingency thing, if you are over, if this is red, it's not going to let you submit the slate. So you need to mark ones that you want to fund but don't have enough money for as contingency, and then rank them in the order that you would prefer to have them considered as funds become available. And then anything that is just, I definitely don't want to fund it. I might, I may fund it in the future, but I don't want to fund it in this round. You mark that do not fund, and we'll bucket that out, and you can come back to it later. You can order the screen. This screen doesn't work quite as the same as some of the built-in screens where we had lists where you could click on things to order them. This one, you order it here. It's going to come in ordered by the funding recommendation and push all the do not funds to the bottom, and the contingencies just above that, and then anything that's being recommended for funding above that. And then behind that, it's going to order them by the score. So you have your highest scoring ones will appear at the top. You can at any time reverse the order. So in this case, there's these three things. There's not too much to see going on here, but you can reverse the order. I can order by name and a few other things. The application ID, if I'm used to it by now, the total cost, if I want to do that kind of ranking, the total scoring, and then the contingency ranking if I just want to be looking at my contingencies. And then if for any reason the order doesn't seem to update, just click refresh order and the order will update. But it should update automatically after you make any changes here. So at this point, I'm done scoring. No, not necessarily. I might want to actually fund this guy because this is the only actual project I have. And I can choose submit the slate. My work on scoring and all that is done at this point, and then the rep will take over on their portion of the approval. A couple of things that you can do here, though, that you can still do on this page is you can communicate with the rep. And I'm going to show this from the application page because there's a little bit more enabled over there. But you can chat with the rep. You can send emails about the slate if you want to communicate with the rep particularly about the slate, or you want to communicate with really anybody else, and it'll associate those with the records. I'm going to go to an application record now and show that information. And by the way, you can see an example of the badging up here of notifications that have occurred. So I could go into an application and I can like communicate about it. And now it's not showing up for me. I don't think I have chat enabled for this user, so we'll be able to show that. But I could send an email. Of course, I'm on multiple things because this is a test system. You can include a BCC, so you could BCC yourself. This is just like composing a regular old email, but the benefit here is it's going to associate with the record. And hit send. And before I go look at that email I just got the ding for, you'll notice that in this record that activity is there. So I can go out and come back in, and that's going to be there. And it's going to have the content of my email. And if I had any attachments, who it was sent to, all stored with this record. So you get that kind of history associated with it, and you can track what communications you've had. So if you find yourself asking for things multiple times, or if you don't remember if you did something, using the email within the system is a good way to do that. Now, example of what that would look like. So that kind of email is just going to look like this. It came from Stephanie. Now, her email in the system right now is a fake email because this is a test system. If the person goes to reply to that, they will not be replying to Salesforce. They will be replying to Stephanie. So their reply won't end up on that record. But at least your initial email ended up on that record. So you have it there. And then another example of an email coming from the system. When that slate documentation that I requested earlier was ready, this is what the email looks like to tell you that it was ready in whatever email address you entered in that dialogue. And then there's a link here that can go out, and I can click on that and go retrieve that email. Now my email client blocks that from being a link, but yours it'll likely be a link to the actual record that you can click on. Another way of communicating out here, or handling your tasks or handling your chores too, would be to create tasks, and you can assign those to the applicant. OPWC could assign tasks to you. You could assign tasks to yourself and track what you're doing. Hey, by the 24th, I must have this file by the 24th. If I can spell. So that's assigned to myself. I'm Stephanie in this case. And here's my task out here, and it says that it's upcoming. And actually, when it comes due, you would get the notification out here. And then I can just go in and I can say, hey, this task is completed. So I have a nice checkoff list there. One more way, and like I said, unfortunately, it's requiring me to actually set up some activity and chat about the activities what it's requiring. So here we can see I can chat about this activity. Eventually, you'll be able to chat about the actual record itself. So, but this is an example of the chat. So. And I can store that. And then anytime I come back to the record, refresh this page. That information will still be there. One more way of chatting back and forth, which I'm not going to dig into too deeply here, is there's several notes fields. So there's this one, additional notes for the applicant. We haven't entered any information in there. This particular application is submitted already. It's not editable by you, but you can pass notes back and forth through some of these fields. And in particular, if you have an application, which I don't have any dummied up for you that aren't submitted yet, you could say it needs more information, and it'll pop up a box with that note in it, and you can fill out that note and tell the person what you need, and they'll get an email, and that information will be in the email. So it's like, hey, I need you to upload 3 files, and they'll get an email that says, hey, I need to upload 3 files. See, Abby, am I missing anything?
Nope. I think that Stephanie did have a question. It kind of goes back to the scoring. The scoring is reflective of the NRAC score totals, ? I.e. total score is the NRAC scores for project added up. Yeah, Stephanie, however you handle your scoring, the system isn't checking anything against your methodology, nor do we care within that system, like what each and every individual question score is. It's just the cumulative score based off of your methodology total. It's basically, we want to know the rating and ranking of all the projects within a slate, just like you would provide us now with your slate spreadsheet that shows us the highest and lowest scores and how you came to the conclusions that you did to fund the projects, if that makes sense. This is a good time. I think that kind of covers everything I think that Craig and I wanted to chat about. This is your opportunity here to ask some questions for anybody that wants to chime in. You can feel free to hold the space bar key to unmute yourself and let us know if you have any questions so far.
If you're having trouble with it, just click on the mute button there. Sometimes the chat feature appears to be interrupting that.
Okay. Craig, do you want to show them just how they can view all the active projects within their district just in case? So right now, you guys are all probably used to getting like an active project list from your program representatives. You don't have to, contact us anymore for those unless you have questions about it. You're able to go into the system and just view where things are at. That way, if you think somebody's behind schedule, you can pull it up and check it out yourselves. And then you can ask questions about what our thoughts are on it. So you'll see here, Craig pulled up, it's just on that applications projects tab. He sorted it to approved, and then you have a list of all the approved projects that you can kind of drill down to. Craig, one thing I wanted to see, when you please show them how you can right click on a project number and it will open in a new tab. That way, let's say they're working off of this list of 4 and they want to see them all. If you right click and go click on open in a new tab, it will take you to the specifics of that project application, but in a brand new tab so that you don't have to lose your original list. And that's something that I have found really helpful when I'm reviewing things is I want to see my list, but I also want to see the specifics from a project, and right clicking on it will take you there. So you can have multiple tabs of information open at the same time and then refer back to your full list. Other questions?
Yeah, Abby, I have a question. It seems like you showed several different ways to input the information about the rankings of projects.
Yes, correct.
So why would you go to the trouble of downloading and then filling in on the spreadsheet? And
I
uploading it
agree.
back?
So, Tim, this is it's more so that was a functionality that was pretty important in the infrastructure system when you're dealing with, let's say 60 project applications. So we did build the same functionality into the Clean Ohio system, but obviously for Clean Ohio, correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody has ever received more than 10 applications, 15 applications, I'd be surprised. It seems like at least specific to my districts, we're more at the like 5 to 10 mark in the last year or two. So no, like the purpose of going through the whole hassle of the spreadsheet probably isn't worth it. The only thing I can say it might be worthwhile is just to be able to download all that information. I mean, you could start by just downloading it from the system just to create the spreadsheet that you're used to creating. It doesn't mean you have to upload it back in there. You could just download it in, format it the way you want to, and it's the basis for your spreadsheet. And then you can go in and manually enter in the funding just as easily. You do not have to upload the spreadsheet. For the infrastructure system, I can see it both ways. I think that might be more helpful to our infrastructure liaisons who are managing a lot more projects on a regular basis. So yeah, you're right. It does seem cumbersome given a small slate of projects, but we
Okay,
just wanted to show the different functionalities.
yeah. No, that's great. That's a great suggestion too about using it as the basis for the spreadsheet when you're scoring.
Yeah, just pull it all in there, rename it, make it look pretty, and then you don't have to retape all that information. Other questions? Oh, you guys had all the questions a few weeks ago at our district liaison meeting. Did we just cover it all, or maybe it's just a matter of once you get to playing in the system, you'll find more functionalities that you have questions on. But we have quite a bit of time left. If anybody needs a refresher on what anything looks like, even on like the application end, anything that you're just not remembering, this is the time, especially with Craig here, to do so.
Hey, Abby, this is Lewis. Yeah, I'll probably have a lot more questions when I actually play with it. Same thing
Oh,
this
I'm sure.
morning. Like, it's hard to, like, until you could really dig into it.
Yep.
Also, I'm at home and I have kids running around, so I had 50% of attention on you and 50% on them. So,
I get it. I get it. I had to like kick my kids out of the house for a few hours.
Yeah.
Um, Hi Carmela. Carmela said until we start putting okay, yeah. Until we start putting stuff in, it's going to be hard to tell what the questions were. And yes, there will be a manual document. Yeah, so we'll walk you through everything through the manual. And as you start playing around with it, I think you could always pull this back up and take a look at it again. Hey, Craig, could you pull up just a project application? I wanted, since we have a little bit of time, and if anybody's just, over it, you don't have to stick around if you don't want to, but I wanted to bring up, if you scroll down, the one big functionality difference that you're going to find with the project application that you guys might remember, and if you keep scrolling down, and it might not even be in there yet because we don't have this with our current ones. This one, yeah, the parcels. So the one thing, this was the important piece, specific to our staff, I think, that was really important that we wanted to capture. For Clean Ohio applications that have multi-parcels, maybe they're leveraging a donated piece and some timber value, and we all know we get some pretty complicated Clean Ohio projects. This little section down here under parcels, which is not currently filled out because obviously we haven't been collecting any of this data in this format yet, so it's not filled out for our existing projects. But for our new applications, this is going to be something that's a little bit new for everybody. And it's basically just going to be asking for a breakdown of every parcel, the parcel number, the parcel name, where it's located. The units is referring to, how many acres or linear feet if it's a stream bank, whatever the case may be. In there, we're asking for the appraised value, the purchase price, which we know might be two different things. So if it's appraised at 100,000 but being purchased at 50,000, those are things that we want to note. And then the donated value, of course, then would be the $50,000 difference. And then let's say they did a timber appraisal on it and also determined that $20,000 worth of timber is on there, and they put that in there. And let's say they have 3 or 4 different parcels. Those would all be, when you break it down, you'll be adding basically like line items to each application for anything that's being included in the app. So this was just something I thought, since we have a few minutes, I draw your attention to, because it's going to look a little bit different than what folks are used to seeing. But I think the end goal is that we are trying to collect the data in a way that kind of makes sense, because I think that's one of the hardest parts for our staff, is to figure out, well, where are you coming up with this total amount? And this will assist us, and hopefully the districts as well, with going through that. And it looks like Craig's kind of putting in a test application to show you what that will look like. So if there's any questions about that, but I think that's what you're going to find is a big change to the overall application process. The rest of it is all pretty standard to what you're used to seeing. It's just a matter of how we're asking for that information. The other thing too is, I think we kind of dummied down the project description information a little bit too. It's not going to be all the multi boxes that you're used to seeing. I think it's limited to just a few things, where it's located, what it is that you're doing, that type of thing. So it's not going to be, easements and things like that. That's all going to be included in the project description. So where you're used to seeing a lot more information on that, I think it's the 5th page of the application. It's all going to be consolidated a little bit more closely in line with what the infrastructure program currently requires. Lori, if Monroe calls and wants help with something, can I search by jurisdiction name? Yeah, yep. At the top there, under search, you can search for pretty much anything, and it'll pull up anything that matches within that, within your records. Yeah, so this is what Craig's trying to show you. You're going to click on add a parcel, and that's where the parcel name, number, the area, acres, whatever it is, the appraised value. And if they had 10 parcels, they would add 10 little add a parcel buttons with all the information on each one. And this just assists us with understanding what it is you're specifically trying to do.
Hey, Abby, it's Michelle. I have a question.
Yeah.
I think it's more, I mean, it really is more for infrastructure, but with the new portal, when I have my final executive committee meeting for infrastructure, when I give out their spreadsheet, I provide them with their points for each factor within the methodology. I will not be able to do that with the portal, correct? I will only be able to get their total score.
In the portal itself, no, we won't collect that data, but if I were you, I would just make a copy of that spreadsheet, and then you can add in all the points you need to, and you can just do a cumulative total when you upload it into the system.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay, I'm not hearing any questions. As you start messing around in the system, feel free to contact us. We're happy to walk you through anything. Your logins and usernames should be coming out here soon. So just wait for that. You'll get an email. It's going to look kind of like and Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of a nondescript email from Salesforce, basically saying, here's a link and follow it and set up your username and password. So it's not gonna come from like me or anybody or your program rep or anyone like that. It's gonna look a little bit more generic. So try not to try not to delete it, but if you do, we can always help out some more.
Yeah, I was looking to see if I had it, but I don't have one. It will
Okay.
definitely come from Salesforce.
Yeah.
On some occasions, it ends up in your spam file.
Abby, I was going to ask if you could send out an email when you know it's coming so we can keep an eye on our spam files.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And now, and this isn't something I touched on yet, and this is a repeat for everyone this morning, but as Linda had kind of made mention in her email last week, if your process for your next funding round, if you already have information out for your next funding round, please consider taking a look at it to add in any needed information about the WorksWise portal and letting your folks know that WorksWise, is the platform they'll be using and how to request a login. And that does not need to be reapproved by Director Bailiff. It will, you can just send your changes over to your rep can review them, and then we can republish that information for your next funding round on the website. But I think it is probably important to have something out there just so that nobody can say, well, there was nothing mentioned in their guidance about, having to use the WorksWise portal. So anything you can do to help get the word out would be much appreciated. And I feel like this morning and right now are running together, but we are going to be continually working to get the word out as well. So we'll attempt another email and then some sort of a letter or postcard in the next upcoming weeks to let people know that this is coming and that they should be requesting this information. Now, as far as when the general public is going to start using this, I had made mention of the fact that the first week of August is when we intend to get this going live. If you or another applicant are also the ones that do disbursements, just know that we will continue to take paper disbursements for the foreseeable future. So, I know that there's a lot of smaller communities that are a little apprehensive about this whole process, and that the paper disbursements and the paper applications, those aren't going away. The paper applications will be discouraged because we will have to put them into the system no matter what. But let's say you have somebody that's just really against using the system or just can't figure it out, or they don't have internet access. All of those things are things that we've considered. The paper application, the PDF that you're used to seeing, will still be available on our website. They can fill it out. And then, you as liaison, we as program reps, somebody can enter it into the system if it's just absolutely not going to work. They could provide an electronic copy. We could upload the documents for them. There are workarounds for this. So just know that, this isn't something where, we expect people to just use the system or that's it. They can't use our funding. That's not the way it's going to be. We're going to be very flexible and hold as many hands as we can to kind of coax people into this new process. But the traditional disbursement process will remain the same. And, hopefully some people will be excited to test out the new system and get in there and fill out a disbursement. But if they're not and they can't figure it out, we're still accepting them through email. The staff will enter them just as we do now, and we'll just work with each individual person as they come in to get them set up. So that's not that anything is ending, nothing's going away. It's just, who's doing the entering. I think most of it will fall on our staff, and then as liaisons, the applications, you might have to help enter a few applications into the system, and if you're not up for it, we certainly can assist with that as well.
So Abby, speaking of holding hands, I have another question. That
Yeah.
Maybe I just didn't understand or didn't hear it said. So
Okay.
my NRAC committee won't have access to the applications in this
No.
portal.
You want to
So how do they receive the applications to review them?
That was that upload feature that Craig kind of showed in the beginning where you can not upload, you can download everything and it dumps it into individual folders. Yeah, so it kind of looks like that. It produces a zip file.
Okay, got it.
The other option that a lot of people, especially for Clean Ohio, so this is, it breaks it out into individual attachments that were uploaded. I've heard a few people say that they're still going to require that, an electronic copy be emailed or something to the liaison. Now, this kind of makes sense to me from a Clean Ohio perspective because you're reviewing so much documentation, and I know a lot of you have really struggled to get away from that hard copy of the Clean Ohio application, because if they're submitting a 500-page document, how do you review all that, right? So so use your best, this is where you can chat with me, Tim, if you have questions, or we can kind of brainstorm the best way for individual districts to handle things. But if you're just really like, I want to still require a paper application for right now and then still have them upload it into the system, that's your prerogative. Maybe you do that for the first year. That's up to you. I mean, obviously, our end goal is to get into a paperless system. It's a green space program after all, so submitting 6 to 10 copies of a 300-page document is, not the ideal goal for our green space program. but maybe that's just the way you do it for another year until everybody feels confident with this. That's completely up to you.
Yeah, I hope to not have to do that, but I do have some NRAC members who may require me to print some copies.
Yep. And that, it's even just, from our experience with teleworking, I'll tell you what, reviewing a typical infrastructure program, disbursement request even, not such a big deal, but you guys start submitting these requests to proceeds that are 200 pages long. I get it. I struggle with it sometimes too and think, gosh, I don't mind being paperless, but it's a lot to review on a screen and trying to flip through things. So I totally get it. And that's something that you as an NRAC can discuss, but you do have that functionality within the system to view the application. And maybe you combine it all into like one PDF. I know there's those PDF programs, like our office has them, the Adobe
Yeah.
PDF, where you just take all the PDFs, you combine it into one file, and you put it on a Dropbox site somewhere for your NRAC members.
Yeah.
If you're only having to do that for 2, 3, 4, whatever, how many applications, just a handful, not such a big deal. I don't think our infrastructure liaisons would love doing that though, because 50, 60 applications, that can get to be tedious. But if you guys have questions about that, we're happy to help.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, just so you know, one final thought about everything, just know that after July 1st, I'm thinking about this now. After July 1st, any of the project agreements for projects or for slates should be going out through the portal. I know they will be for sure for infrastructure. I'm second guessing myself a little bit on green space, but I think they will be. So even though our applicants might not have access to the portal yet, if they are expecting a project agreement, it will still be coming out. However, it's not a Salesforce thing. It is produced by Salesforce and pushed to a program called OneSpan Sign. OneSpan Sign basically sends a link saying, here's your project agreement, click this link, and then it walks the CEO on the project through how to sign it electronically. Once they sign it electronically, it pulls back into Salesforce and we get record that it's been signed. So there's no login functionality necessary in order to process something like that. It's just our internal way of getting our documents signed specific to the project agreements. So just a heads up that between, July 1st and the beginning of August, when the portal goes live, there's still a signing process, but it doesn't require any type of login. Any other final thoughts? Linda, do you have anything you'd like to add before I adjourn?
No, if you can hear me, I don't. I think you covered it very well, very adequately. Thank you.
Okay. Well, if anybody has any further questions, please feel free to shoot me an email, shoot your rep an email, or if your customers have questions, have them give us a call on our customer service line. The other option, obviously, is our workswise@pwc.ohio.gov email address, which is manned by me and Martha. And otherwise, we will follow up in upcoming weeks. And be sure, one last thought, please be sure to have everybody sign up for trainings. If you have applicants, our trainings are in 2 weeks from now, so have them sign up for those. Otherwise, we appreciate your time and wish you all well. Thanks.